Singapore Prime Minister Lawrence Wong has arrived in Putrajaya for the 11th Malaysia-Singapore Leaders Retreat. There, he and his Malaysian counterpart, Anwar Ibrahim, are expected to set the direction for bilateral cooperation while managing outstanding issues. They will also identify new ways to enhance connectivity between the two countries. An expert joins us now from Kuala Lumpur. Dr. Oi San is the Adjunct Senior Fellow at the Singapore Institute of International Affairs. Dr. O, welcome. Now, tell us, in your mind, the significance of this meeting between Singapore and Malaysia. There is the agenda on one hand, but it's also a meeting between these two men as leaders as well, isn't it?
Well, this is, of course, not the first time that the two national leaders have met one another, but it's yet another opportunity for them as well as their respected teams to get familiar with each other, as they will be working with each other to further enhance the bilateral relations in the months and years to come. And then also, I think a lot of us at both sides of the causeway are sort of training our eyes, our attention, our focus on the proposed special economic zone between the two countries. So let's see what kind of details could be fleshed out after this retreat.
Absolutely, because Malaysia is saying that there will be a deal on the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone to be inked at that retreat. Is the expectation that if that is the case, the SEZ will now be expedited? What do you think will happen next?
Well, of course, then, you have to really sort of hit the ground running, almost literally, to set up this, special economic zone. Well, there has to be, the money has to come from somewhere. Both governments would either have to fork out some money for setting up this SEZ, or they would have to, for example, attract foreign direct investments for the SEZ in the very fast manner, because I think both countries are very eager. The business communities of both countries are very eager to get this SEZ running.
You mentioned businesses are eager, but so are ordinary people from both sides looking out from the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone. Why do you think they're so excited about this?
Well, number one is, of course, it could benefit them economically. Hopefully, with the setting of this special zone, the economy of both countries could further integrate with one another and thereby prosper with one another. Another aspect is, of course, a more practical one. There have been a lot of sayings and rumors going on that, for example, there would be expedited ways of crossing borders within this special economic zone. So let's see what kind of good news would be announced after the meeting tomorrow.
Yes, we can only hope. Dr. Wei, what are the other areas? We know what's on the agenda, but what should be on the agenda in terms of outstanding issues between the two sides, in your opinion?
Well, of course, there are the long-standing issues over water supply and so on. But I think both countries are very pragmatic. We agree on what are the lower hanging fruits, for example, to make sure that this sort of very hard-earned, very close bilateral relations would continue to prosper. Because, make no mistakes about it, the whole world, it's not exactly in the best economic shape. And it is almost a godsend that Malaysia and Singapore, number one, both countries, we are economically quite okay. But number two, we indeed could work better with one another even more.
When it comes to Malaysia and Singapore looking out at the main regional or geopolitical factors around us, what would they be in your mind, and how do you think those factors would influence discussions at the retreat?
Well, there's a rise globally of, shall we say, the isolationisms of countries trying not to embrace world trade and free trade anymore. And Malaysia and Singapore, we have very outward-looking economies. International trade is the mainstay of our economy. So how would we enhance trade with one another, number one, and also number two, trade within the region, namely Southeast Asia, in order to either counter or compensate for the anticipated sort of decrease in the willingness for free trade globally. Number two, I think there are also some sort of, shall we say, more ideologically oriented issues, such as what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in the Middle East, and so on. Well, sometimes, again, we are very outward-looking economies. They do have a bearing on our economy, such as the price of fuel, the price of oil, the price of grains and food, and so on. So all these issues, of course, we could not solve them by ourselves, but if we have more or less a somewhat united stand, it would help a lot.
Thank you so much for joining us from Kuala Lumpur, Dr. Oisan, Adjunct Senior Fellow from the Singapore Institute of International Affairs.